that's one of the most important things that people need to understand is that the content of an NDE does not depend on your prior beliefs. The way you tell the story might, who you call the characters might, but the content itself can be very world view shattering. It certainly was for me. I grew up in a Methodist church in North Carolina. Never would have entertained concepts of reincarnation and all the other knowledge I've gained about non-local consciousness and the primacy of consciousness. That never would have been something that would have come to me, but it came through the experience itself. And likewise, the more I studied about other NDEs, the more I realized that they were bringing very similar messages of telling us something refreshing and liberating about the nature of human spirit and the fact that we are truly spiritual beings in a spiritual universe. And that's where I think the modern scientific awakening, and the tip of that spear is certainly near-death experiences, but the modern scientific awakening about the nature of consciousness and the relationship of brain and mind is absolutely crucial for this world today.
And we found that people have it's good for you to have a near-death experience. That we had careful controls, and we found that, first of all, they had very little death anxiety. They're not frightened, and they had an unusual zest for living. So they love to live, and they are not afraid to die. They gave more money to charity than our control populations. They are more likely to be into helping professions, and they psychologically were far healthier. Much less anxiety, much less depression. Interestingly, much less prescription drugs, but interestingly enough, statistically significantly less use of over-the-counter drugs. Mm-hmm. And so they just lived vibrant, wonderful lives. It's like having a near-death experience. You would get a post-traumatic bliss syndrome, so to speak.
I wanted to focus on the physiologic and cognitive after effects because they were irrefutable and they were demonstrable. So a lot of these people who had these after effects, they had been documented. These were people who'd had physicals before their NDEs and physicals after their NDEs. So, they had their hearing checked before their NDE and it was normal. And then they went for a physical, a few months after their NDE. And now all of a sudden their hearing is outside the bounds of normal.
The divine inspiration that I was given became the driver for a lot of the development that came after that.
Yeah.
That said, I think that the most important thing that people can do is to follow the things that they're passionate about. And so if music is the thing that they're passionate about, to allow it into your life and to allow it to develop. And there's sacrifices with everything.
And that shifts so much in our brains and in our attitudes, our experience of ourselves and our lives, that's what you're seeing. It's the impact of that mystical experience. And there was one research study done about 25 years ago on quantum change. Mm-hmm. And two psychologists found people who had what they called a quantum change, a spontaneous mystical experience. No drugs or medicines involved. Some of them were around near-death experiences, but these spontaneous mystical experiences changed their lives.
The thing about the near-death is that I've experienced it, and I know that it's perfectly safe. There is no death in the spirit world. The spirit is not concerned with up, down, left, right, time, anything like that, right, wrong, none of that exists in spirit. But the human body and the human personality has its own preoccupations. And we're part of the challenge of being here and being on the leading edge of creation in this human personality is dealing with that personality.
But I only set that stage because of what happened next. I mean, there I am literally panicked. I mean, grief-stricken with what's happened. And it felt like light came. it felt like light came to me and began to encircle me with this comforting light. And I was a little bit confused. I thought, wow, what's happening? And it began to feel as if I was rising above the scene of the accident, out of all that grief and that, I mean, it's the worst hell a man could be in, and yet there was this light, this comforting love, and it almost felt tangible.
And it was this really life-changing alteration of perspective. And really every destructive emotion I ever felt about my past just disappeared, vanished. Wow. I mean, it's gone. And I also had this incredible experience of seeing each one of those events. And again, these are the miserable times of my life. But I was able to see the beauty that came out of every single event when I saw them 20, 25, 35 times removed. And it was incredible.